Today we're going to do another video about good faith marriage evidence and what you need to submit to USCIS and bring with you to the green card interview. If you're new to my channel, I'm Puyan Darian, an immigration lawyer, and today we're going to talk about immigration law. The most important evidence of a good faith marriage is your marriage certificate to prove that you're actually legally married. And in addition to the marriage certificate, we need to show that if you've ever been previously married, the prior marriages have been legally terminated. So what does that mean? We need to submit the divorce certificates or annulment certificates if the marriage ended in divorce or an annulment. Some divorce certificates will trigger additional inquiry by USCIS. For example, if you get a divorce certificate out of Nevada, USCIS might actually ask you for evidence that you were a resident of Nevada for the requisite period of time before you got divorced there. Or they might call your divorce certificate into question, which means you never got divorced and your second marriage, your current marriage, is also being called into question. There could also be a finding of bigamy, saying you tried to legally marry two people at the same time. So not a great thing. You want to make sure your marriage certificate is submitted and all of your divorce certificates are legally valid. The next thing that USCIS likes to look for, and remember, this isn't required for every marriage. Every marriage takes a different form. Your relationships are all going to be different, but evidence of joint financial responsibility. They want to see that you guys are financially commingling and that you've taken on responsibilities together as spouses. So what does that mean? It can be joint bank accounts, joint credit cards, and joint credit card is usually one person has an account and the other spouse is put on as a joint or authorized user on that account. Joint ownership of things like property or assets. Is your car title in both of your names? Is your house in both of your names? Or maybe even your lease? Is there evidence that you guys are actually sharing your finances together? Another thing is whether your taxes are filed jointly. This one's a little bit complicated because if the immigrant spouse doesn't have a social security or a tax ID number, you might have difficulty filing your taxes jointly. So don't put so much weight into that until your spouse has a tax ID or social security. At that point, if it makes sense and your accountant recommends it, you should file your taxes jointly for immigration purposes. And when I say immigration purposes, I don't mean you should do it just to generate evidence for immigration. What I mean is, if it makes sense financially to file your taxes jointly, you should submit a copy of it to immigration. We also want to show evidence of a joint household. We want to show that you guys are actually living together at the same address. And this can take many different forms. Like I said, every marriage is different. I already mentioned submitting evidence that you might own a home together, or maybe you're leasing an apartment together, but there's other smaller pieces of evidence. For example, if your utilities are in both of your names, that's a great piece of evidence to submit. If you guys are on a cell phone plan, even though it might just be in one of your names, if both phone numbers are listed on the same plan and the address on the bill is your home address, that's a great piece of evidence to submit. You guys might have utilities, you might have joint cable or internet. All of these things paint the picture, and we should submit evidence of anything that's addressed to both of you at your home. Sometimes people ask me whether they need to submit affidavits or statements from friends or family that can attest to your relationship. For example, should I ask my mom or my friend to write a letter saying how long we've been in a relationship or what our relationship is like? Generally speaking, I don't love this type of evidence because it's very self-serving. Anyone can get a friend or a family member to write a letter that, says pretty much whatever you want it to say. In rare occasions, I will submit affidavits, specifically if there is no better evidence to submit for whatever reason. But generally speaking, if you're gonna submit an affidavit, you should also include a copy of the ID of the person who submitted the affidavit, like a copy of their driver's license. And the affidavit should have as much detail as possible, listing specific dates, specific events, and what their observations were. Communication records can really strengthen your case depending on what those records include. For example, if you guys have phone logs or WhatsApp logs, video logs, we can include screenshots of all of those. If you guys are in an email chain with, someone who's renovating your home, include copies of that, nothing to lose, and it shows that you guys have been dealing with this situation. It's great evidence and it's unique to your situation. It's kind of hard to make that stuff up and it's unusual. Other evidence can include that you've spoken with your immigrant spouse's family who's abroad by video chat. For example, if your spouse's family is in a different country and you guys are video chatting, you could take a screenshot showing the family members are talking to you, and we can include copies of that as evidence of your good faith marriage. Any communication spanning a long period of time will strongly support that this is a real marriage, that you guys have been talking to each other, that you know each other. Another thing is social media posts. You can look at a Facebook timeline or whatever social media website and just take screenshots showing all the things you've done together. It'll often include photographs as well. So communications, social media, all great evidence to submit. Documentation of shared experiences is one of the best pieces of evidence that I like my clients to submit when we're applying for a green card based on a marriage. This can be evidence that you guys have traveled together, been to Disney World, driven around the country, stayed at a hotel, gone to the beach. Literally anything you guys have done together will generate some evidence, hopefully. That can be photographs, but hopefully more than just photographs. There could be hotel confirmations, flight confirmations, receipts. All sorts of evidence can be generated from things that you guys have done together. And what I really like to do is to include a timeline. If I'm gonna include photographs, I'll say like these photographs are from summer of 2021 at the Jersey Shore, just a brief description, so that when the officer is flipping through the pages and seeing the photographs, they have a general idea what they're looking at. Also, if you guys have ever been invited to like a friend or family member's wedding, a party, a family reunion, these are amazing pieces of evidence to submit. Think about it from the perspective of the immigration officer. They're trying to make sure that this is a real marriage, that you're not just in a fake marriage where the immigrant spouse paid the US citizen spouse a bunch of money to create some fake evidence and go with them to a green card interview. Who's gonna bring their fake spouse to a friend or family member's wedding or to their family reunion? Doesn't really make sense. So this is great evidence to submit of your good faith marriage. Evidence of joint insurance is really good evidence that you're in a good faith marriage. This could be joint car insurance, health insurance, life insurance. You can show evidence that you're designated as beneficiaries on each other's life insurance policies. Anything like that is good evidence. I would submit copies of the policies or copies of your health insurance cards, for example. And along those lines, if you guys are beneficiaries on any other accounts, employers' accounts, like if you have a spouse as your medical beneficiary or health insurance beneficiary and you have it on your employee portal through your employer, then you can print out screenshots of that, showing that you told your employer you have a spouse and your spouse receives these benefits. If you have an IRA, any type of retirement account, any type of bank account where in the event of death, your spouse is designated as the beneficiary to receive these funds, it's a really good idea to submit evidence of that. It shows that you're in a real marriage. An unfortunate reality in immigration world, especially when it comes to marriages, is that a small percentage of people will get into fake marriages just to try to apply for permanent residence. And if you haven't seen my previous video, specifically I put one out a few weeks ago about a 204C determination of marriage fraud and why it's a devastating and terrible idea to ever get into a marriage just for an immigration benefit. I think you need to watch that video next, because your chances of ever becoming a permanent resident will likely be ruined forever. Lifetime ban. So don't even consider getting into a fake marriage. Now, with that said, if you are in a real relationship and you're creating your evidence list, or you're gonna get married soon and you need assistance, or you wanna speak with a lawyer to go through what evidence is applicable to your marriage, because, like I said, every marriage is completely different. I would be more than happy to do a consultation where we can go through all of the evidence in your relationship from start to finish, create a detailed evidence list, and from there you can decide whether you want me to represent you in the case, or even if you want to do it yourself. I strongly recommend speaking with an immigration lawyer before you take any steps, because sometimes there are multiple options available. And for example, getting married or filing a family petition before you explore all the options can affect which options are actually available to you. So if you need assistance with anything, feel free to schedule a consultation. You can book it through my website, call my office, send us a text. And if you're new to my channel, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next week for another immigration video.